Next item on the agenda, Kindersley Cultural Plan final draft. Tim, you got the floor.
I come bearing gifts. Thank you, council and staff, for your time tonight. We're very pleased to be here. I know you've had the initial copy of the plan, and so tonight we're here to kind of give you a review of that plan. The other thing I'd like to thank you for is for dedicating resources to help our committee out. Tim and Michelle's expertise was much appreciated. They were great for their knowledge about culture plans and how to develop them, their organizing skills, their collation, and the resources that they allowed us to use through the town to gather some of the information. We couldn't have done it without them, so I really appreciate on behalf of the committee that they were able to help, and whoever else of the staff that they talked into helping them, so I'm sure there was a few more. So we're grateful for the opportunity to provide this information. A lot of work went into it, and just before we start, can you do that? Can I prime them up with the PowerPoint? Okay. I want you to see this. You need a picture in your head first. God help me that it works. No music?
Okay, so the sound should play right away, right?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, just hold on. Let's see if I can get this corrected for you.
And I don't want to waste too much time because you're going to have to pretend you're hearing Curtis Harrison play his song.
You can always sing.
I really can't. Yeah. Maybe we'll go on speaking till you get that up, huh? Okay. So I'm going to let the committee members introduce themselves and why they got on the committee. My name is Sharon Habersh, for those of you that may not know me, but I think I know everybody here. I got on the committee because as a citizen, I believe that it's important that people in Kindersley contribute back and pay back, and I think that that's something that I've been passionate about for a lot of years. I've been involved in some cultural events, lots of other things. Kindersley is a great place and has been for us and our business and our family. And sometimes I think we forget about what a great place we have here. So the Culture Committee interested me for lots of reasons. And can I have the rest of the committee introduce themselves? So starting with Marilyn in the back there.
I'm Marilyn Shea from the library. I felt very strongly that the library needs to be involved in culture plans because the library serves as an information center. I could use my experience in two ways. First, by sharing what I have learned from the public, and secondly, by incorporating what I've learned by being on the committee to people that I have come in contact with each day. The process really opened my eyes and changed my definition of culture. What I consider to be cultural activities fit better under the actual definition of fine arts. Culture is the way we live, work, and interact with others.
And Heather.
Hi, I'm Heather Wall. I am actually on behalf of the Kindersley Chamber of Commerce. I think it's a very important part of our makeup, including my family, to identify where we mold and we fit into our community. And this is what makes us unique. Realizing there's so much more to the community and how it's run, different groups, nationalities, events, and how it makes us all tick. The history of where we come from, we can learn lots from the elders of our community and surrounding areas. Building and enhancing our future for generations to come. This is the Culture Plan, all wrapped up in a gift bag, waiting to be opened.
Bill, would you like to get it?
Bill Warrington. I'm the old guy from the museum. Anyway, I've always been interested in Kindersley because 1941. I was born in this town, and I've been here several times since. But anyway, with the museum, we as a museum board and with now that we've got the chamber out there, yeah, and the tourist booth is a big part of it. It's amazing how many times when people come through from Toronto or wherever, and they maybe stop in Saskatoon and they go on their way to Calgary, and I've always asked myself, what would they remember about Kindersley? You know, like, is there anything that stands out? And so the museum has got some information that we would love to show off. The camera club has got a nice presentation with some pictures of the scenery around here. And so we would really like to see see this here 100th birthday, 150th birthday actually. I'm on a committee with trying to save the house up here, and I wish I could win the lottery because I just go buy the place, but I can't. So anyway, we need to. When you out in the country and you ask people, if I say Kindersley, what do you think of them? The biggest question, the biggest answer has been groceries. Like the town of Kindersley is really a service for me. I live out almost to the Alberta border. Am I getting cut off here?
You see me getting closer? Yeah.
Anyway, hey, we go way back. Anyway, well, the fact of the matter is, if there's anything goes wrong out at the farm, whether it's a universal goes out or we need to have a pill or something, Kindersley is first thing on the list. So I'd say that I support Kindersley through the museum and through just for my own personal reasons. Is that good enough?
It's perfect. Thank you, Bill.
Thank you.
Helen, would you like to?
My name's Helen Barclay, and I'm a local music teacher and musician in the community. I grew up in the Kindersley area, near Driver, if you know that. Then I went away for training and came back, and I raised a family here, and I've been teaching music lessons in town and working with students for 26 years or so, I guess, I think about it. Anyways, to be on the culture plan, I appreciated Tim Hanna inviting me, and the group that did, and it's been interesting working with these people, and just I thought it was interesting to take kind of an inventory of what we have as a town and in the area to offer to people, and just to look at it both commercially plus culturally, culture, sports, everything together, and just to make it a very good community to live in. So,
Thank you. And Tessa's?
I'm Tessa Sotner. I am the youth representative on the committee. I got involved in the culture plan because when I joined the youth committee, my platform was community culture because I have always expressed an interest in the culture of Kindersley and the culture of Canada. And so when Michelle approached me and asked if I was interested in joining the committee, of course I said yes. Throughout my time on the committee, I learned a lot about how Kindersley works, and I actually wrote a message in the document, so I won't spend too long on that, but I just found that my time was extremely educational, and I found that I've grown a lot, and I feel like I have a more wise mindset in terms of culture in our town.
Thanks, Tessa. And thanks for your cheerleaders to come out to support you too. That's great. Okay, so before I get much farther, I have to tell you, we met at 8 o'clock in the morning because it's the only time everybody could meet. And there were 3 other committee members that couldn't be here tonight, and that is Rochelle Daw, and Tammy Diemert, who is our school connection, and Tom Morris, who is off holidaying in Mexico. I don't know how he could leave us behind with this, but one of the things we would do at 8 in the morning is somebody would bring muffins, because you had to have a reason to get to a meeting at 8 o'clock in the morning. So I am sharing that custom with you guys. And just so you know, those are made with almost all ingredients from around Kindersley. It's got Nunweiler flour and pumpkin from a farmer that I bought out of town, and canola oil and all the things that we have around here. So again, we have a lot of things around here that are worth being happy that we have. So, and eggs for my daughter's chicken coop. So that is not in town, just in case you're looking for it. I'd also like to acknowledge some funding that did come our way through SaskCulture and through the town as well that helped us out. So tonight we're just going to provide you a brief overview with the plan. And one of the tasks that the committee had to do after they got all the information in was to come up with a definition of what the word culture meant for Kindersley. And the definition I'm about to read is a combination of the community input and the advisory committee expertise. So Kindersley's culture is reflective of the collective community and our individual thoughts, actions, and activities. Culture fundamentally unites people through inspiration, support, inclusiveness, engagement, and respect for our shared way of living. It's the fabric of our community, stitched together with threads of achievement, art, celebrations, customs, heritage, industry, sport, and values. A positive community leads to growth and celebrating successes for all to enjoy. So this is what we kept in mind as the definition as we move forward. So I think the question might be for lots of us is, what's a plan and why do we need one? Because I get that question lots, and it's hard sometimes to explain what a culture plan is. So culture itself is considered to be one of the 4 pillars of a successful community. The other 3 are social, economic, and environment. And a culture plan can link those pillars together. Our culture is what makes us unique and authentic. It's about our strengths and our weaknesses. And our plan identifies possible actions and timelines and provides a lens for decision makers. So people like yourselves, but not just yourselves, also our community leaders, our groups, anybody out there that is making decisions or trying to make a decision about how to work in the community. Important to the development of the plan was community input and engagement. And there were 17 opportunities and different types of methods provided throughout the past year. Now, communication of that was always a challenge, and it was important that the communication of events and planning would make it accessible to lots of different kinds of groups of people. Having said that, I think we all wished we could have had a little more input and a little more people attending our forums. But I'll talk a little bit more about that later on. But what did happen during this time from March to September is that there were booths at the Goose Festival and the trade show where people were asked for their input. There were kitchen table sessions which were undertaken by our group members with either individuals or small groups where a series of questions was gone through. It took about an hour. It was kind of more like a conversation with people, and it was recorded. We conducted a folklore workshop, and a SaskCulture speaker came out, and town people were invited to hear about that. The local schools did some mapping exercises and identifying community assets, thanks to Tammy Diemert and Michelle, who helped lead that. There was identification of community assets, and we had a number of forums, forums for seniors, forums for community groups, forums for the public. Plus we had 3 online surveys, the last of which is just completed this last week, I think, right? Yeah. So the forum, and I think you'll hear about that at the end because I'm going to ask Dave to speak about that, but it did already create some synergies and some spin-offs, so we were really pleased to see that. That was encouraging for us. So before we get started, I want to ask you a question, each of you, to say, what is one thing, and there's no wrong answer, that you think is special about Kindersley? You want to start, Sean?
One thing.
One thing.
Also, the Motherwell Reservoir.
Okay, Randy?
I like our recreation programs.
No shortage of green space.
Okay. Dean?
Mix between agriculture and oil field.
Yeah.
I think a lot of the people that we have that stand up and volunteer for stuff is the thing that I look at, and that small town attitude.
The town is is very open for business and business friendly.
Our hot climate and clean air.
That's true. We're a lot warmer than some places, right? Yeah. Yeah. Although there'd be
In the
some
summer.
people that would disagree with you in the -40. So culture mapping was one of our tools that we used, and you'll see this on the wall. Okay, are we ready with that? Wayne, I sort of ignored it. So, but before we do that, let's do that, because let's put those pictures in your head, especially after you've said some of those things. These were about 50 pictures, since we're not going to get to listen to Bruce's music here. They were given to me by my neighbor, Michelle Gold, who happens to be in the Glenwood Camera Club, a few from some of our committee members, and also from the museum archives. So I didn't have a lot of time to pull this together, and I'm not above shamelessly putting other people in the pictures there. But Lauren Staples would be happy to see his picture in there too. I can believe there was somebody on that bowl named Lauren Staples. But they're just pictures of in and around Kindersley, and they're great visuals to show what we are about. And it sure didn't take me long to do that. So you can imagine, everybody's got a picture in their head or a favorite thing that happens. And it has been happening for a long time. I'm sorry you can't hear the music, because Dad told me today to say it was okay for me to use it. But he is a musician who started the Grilled Cheese-a-Palooza along with Kellen Thackeray, and that was the album that we tried to play for you today, just a song from there. Our beautiful Motherwell Reservoir, which I always call the dam. I guess I'm going to have to get out of that, huh? There's that warm weather we're talking about. And I had to put that in. Excepting for where's the old one? Where's the new one? It's gone. There was a picture of the new rake in there too, but I guess it's missing. So those were the pictures that I put up there to try to get into your heads a little bit more. So one of the key tools that was used was culture mapping, and it's a visual illustration of the impact that culture has on our community. And it establishes that line with the social, economic, and individuals. So the result in the report are documented in the report, but also we made kind of a larger chart here to show you. So what you can see is the town of Kindersley, and there's little dots on there that are color-coded. And so we kind of group them into 6 presenting categories. The orange that you see, and it's really hard to see in that little one, but there's a bigger enlargement there, are the creative industries. So things like our dance studio, music instructors. The yellow is space and facilities, like our museums, our art galleries, our movie theater, our library. The pink is cultural heritage. So places like our cemetery, buildings like the post office, the Buffalo Rubbing Stone out at the Motherwell Dam, the Motherwell Reservoir. Purple are our community organizations, our service groups, our charities, our community support groups, our sports and recreation. The green are the festivals and the events we have, tournaments, concerts, markets, all the church activities that come along in the year. And the blue are our natural spaces, so our parks, our walking trails, our beautiful, beautiful skies and vistas. So out of all that information, besides mapping where it is, We also found that we could group together conclusions and recommendations into about 5 main themes, and the group is going to help me out by covering some of those themes with us. So the first theme that we came upon was first impressions, and Heather's going to talk about that.
Did you want me to just?
Whatever you feel comfortable. Come on up, if you don't mind. That's great.
Okay, so they gave me first impressions. So first impressions are always the main factor for making visitors want to visit and stay in our community. The first thing people see when they enter are like things like the flower baskets that are very well, placed in different parts of our community. The well-maintained grass, the trees in the parks where the kids play or relax or enjoy a picnic with the family. And of course, they also notice our ditches just to make sure, are they clean, are they littered? Those things make very long-lasting impressions. Therefore, it's so important to have visual and physical welcoming spaces to attract visitors and, of course, retain the people to stay. Many groups came together to form the Culture Plan of 2017, such as Saskatchewan Tourism, Kindersley Chamber of Commerce, Kindersley Innkeepers Association, the Town of Kindersley members, and the Kindersley Library, Kindersley Youth, and many others. We came together to develop a tourist strategy to encourage tourism right here in Kindersley and for the surrounding areas. The feedback that the group has gotten has indicated there are many opportunities to attract so many more visitors here, such as our vibrant downtown area to encourage spending in our local businesses. Tourism attractions such as special events and programs encourage more visitors to visit and hopefully encourage them to spend money here as well. Another important factor for the first impressions is customer service. While going into the businesses, they notice how well they're treated in that establishment. Their personal interaction with the customers, the staff will then encourage the return of these customers. When the customers come in and receive above and beyond treatment, this will leave a positive impression, encourages them to return, and of course to spread the word.
The second category is that we found as a theme was attitudes and behavior, and Marilyn's going to speak to that.
So I've chosen to elaborate on attitude and behavior. I've lived in this area most of my life, and I feel that the negativity of the people, of our citizens, is becoming very loud and very widespread. And this upsets me, as Kindersley is a wonderful place to live. If people can be involved in things for a positive reason, then an increase in community engagement and volunteerism will surely follow. The restoration of the Kinsman Park is a prime example of this. When the place was vandalized, people jumped into repainting the building, and this expanded into restoring the playground and the outdoor rink. The one disconnect that has appeared many times when we did this culture plan is that people want the town to offer affordable programs and activities at any time or day with no increase in taxes. And they don't always want to come to it, but it has to be there. Residents' expectations need to change from being the town with a capital T, meaning the town of Kindersley, to being town with a small t, which means it's the local citizens and organizations that are willing to undertake some of these activities. Thank you.
And Bill, identity. And remember, when you hear me walking up behind you.
Yeah, I've been there.
We do go long back. We were on the school board together many years ago.
Yeah. Well, anyway, let's go back in history. Let's go back to the time when people moved in here. And the first thing that happened was they had little school districts. Everything happened there. You had funerals there, you had dances there, you had Christmas concerts and everything. And then as technology changed and you got better ways of getting around, we moved into towns like Smiley and Colville and Alsace. But now, we are moving into places like Kindersley. Like, honestly, I was in Scott this afternoon, down here tonight, going to Calgary probably in a couple of days. No big deal. But You know, like it's kind of it's something that's kind of sneaking up on us, and we really aren't, in a lot of cases, aren't ready. Now, when we talk about culture, it kind of sneaks up on you too, because, you know, like these things happen, and you know, like we look back and say, what the heck happened, eh? You know, like I don't know where you guys found your girlfriends, but I found mine in the hall in Ringo. She ended up my wife. You know, I don't know, I think most guys now would have to come at least to Kindersley. I know there was an old man that ran the grocery store in Merritt at one time, and most of you likely don't even know where Merritt is. But anyway, he told me one time, he says, if you're going to find a girlfriend, you've got to go at least 2 towns over. We don't want to, you know, okay. So, you see, we really have, this culture is really something that sneaks up on us, and we look back on that. What are we going to look at 50 years from now? I mean, it's amazing how the technology has changed. Now, when my grandkids were out skiing in the mountains, and all of a sudden my wife says, hey, look at this. It's on the telephone. There they are. That wouldn't have happened 50 years ago. Never. Maybe even 10 years ago it wouldn't have happened. So let's be ready. The museum has got we are planning to have 150th birthday party, and whatever we need to do to help out with that, we need to be there. There's all kinds of things that the younger generation, like Lord knows my grandson, he's smarter on that little cell phone than I am. And that's all he knows. I was going down from my farm down to where I was raised, and I said to them, I says, which way are we going? Oh, geez, nobody knew. Sun was shining up there in the sky. So they gets their phone out, gets the compass out. Oh, Grandpa, we're going south. You know? Like, to me, that was a natural thing. You know, I don't know if they even know the sun comes up in the east. Because they lived in the city all their life, and so when they woke up in the morning, the sun was up. Big deal. Those are the things that really bother me, is that somehow we've got to keep these young people in touch with that. When we have our Heritage Day out there and we seed grain, then we harvest it, and then young kids from the school were out there, and Miss Lionel Story was the one that was teaching them and talking to them, and he said, now look at guys, that's oats in that cedar. What's oats for? Well, they said, well, you make porridge out of it. That's one thing we know. So then they were really surprised when they went out there and found out that them oats were about that high in the fall. Eh? They didn't know what was happening. And I don't really blame the kids. I don't, 2 more sentences. 2 more sentences. I don't really blame the kids, because we've done it to them. We really have. We've isolated them into their little world, and there's a whole big world out there they need to know about. Thank you very much.
And you saw a couple of pictures of the old railway, and Bill was just telling me that the museum's doing their best to have that old railway station ready to go for the 150th, so that people can really celebrate that, because that was certainly our early beginnings for sure. All right, Tessa.
So another theme that was identified throughout the many surveys that the Culture Plan put out to the public was that people identified Kindersley as a very diverse community, but not a lot of people saw it as an inclusive community. And that is something that should be changing, and with programs such as the Kindersley Youth Committee and getting many different voices in events and programs is changing. But we need to empower our community members in order to create change in our community. In order to build a more diverse and connected community, we hope to fulfill the desires of our community members. And we do this by establishing programs, services, and events outside of the municipal government. And so, like it was mentioned before, we need to take the capital T, Town of Kindersley, and bring it to a lowercase t, Town of Kindersley. Communication is key,
And throughout the surveys, it was identified that word of mouth is how people most commonly get their information. And this limits the amount of information that is able to be spread. And people have expressed a desire for a cohesive and one place fits all kind of deal for getting their information about town events and programs, but not a lot of people want to maintain that upkeep. And so again, it's definitely important to identify inclusion and sustainability as a theme of culture and Kindersley's culture. We desire a balance of service, but we also need support from our community members and municipal government. And that's all I have to say about that.
Tessa. And our last theme was experience. And Heather, you're going to speak to that for us.
In your mind, what makes Kindersley a unique community? Well, a few things come to my mind, such as Goose Festival, Trade Show, the Rodeo, the Junior Clippers, are just a few things to really give us highlights on. These events help define what makes our community spirit that exists here. The creative industry is defined as anyone that produces goods to share skills. Kindersley has many individuals that make up this group. We discover that people are spending more money than thought on the cultural-related activities. While it's hard for us to compete with the larger centers, we tend to offer new products and services. Feedback clearly shows that we must encourage everyone to shop locally, instead of them going to larger centers due to the lack of specific goods that can be offered here. And knowing this, we can recognize the gaps in the local market, that there is a large opportunity for local shops to fill this market. The challenge we now face is being able to identify the gaps in our local products and services. To this, businesses can be successful on a local scale. By creating experiences for Kindersley, by making it notable, and provide an experience relying on authentic, unique places to make goals to attract residents to spend more money in this community.
Thanks, Heather. Now we know that you can all read, so we're not giving you detail by detail of the action plan, but I do want you to draw your attention to the action plan. It starts on about page 26. And before I do that, I just want to talk again about the challenge we had with communication. A lot of methods were used, but we still received feedback that people were either not hearing or getting the information. But having said that, we still think that there's some really great basic resources that we need to continue to utilize, and they were the ones that we did use, and we just think they're still underutilized and they still need to be encouraged to be used. And we did list those in the summary as well. But things like the community calendar, the town news and e-updates, culture days, funding, news of funding resources, our community programs and organizations, there's all ways of communicating and connecting. And we just think that they're still a little bit underutilized, and still people need to be encouraged to take responsibility to access and utilize those better. So out of the 5 themes that we did do, the results of that, the most important part, is the action plan. So we listed actions under each theme. We identified potential shareholders and partners. We have timelines, and we have the benefits that would result if we were to be able to be successful in these actions. They're tangible, they're concrete, they're specific, they're achievable, they're realistic, they're time-based, and they're measurable. That was what we strove to try to do to make it practical. And many of them can be achieved without a lot more community resources coming in. It's using and rallying what we have. Of course, having said that, there's always items that cost. And just in case you're asking what it might be for the town, I'm going to point them out right now so that you know where they are. One of them is on page 27, and that's in the attitudes and behaviors. It's around forming a community roundtable. And there would be some costs in that. And page 29 in inclusion and sustainability, the idea of forming a grant for new initiatives, cultural initiatives. So I just want to draw your attention to those two for your consideration. So that's all the detail we're going to give here tonight. We'll give you some time for questions, but also I just want to say a little bit about what next. And again, after our 300 hours of volunteer work that the committee did themselves and lots of time and input by individuals in the community, what we hope is that this doesn't become a dust collector on a shelf downstairs in the basement here. And we hope that you will consider it and endorse it, and that we can move forward by introducing it to the community and start engaging some of the stakeholders into action items. And I wouldn't mind inviting Dave up to speak because, as I said, we did already see some synergies and we were really pleased to see that. So Dave, if you don't mind coming up.
Thanks, Chair. As everybody knows here, I'm a member of the Legion. And when Michelle approached the different community groups to get together and have a meeting back in November, the Legion, the Elks Hall, the Elks Club, the Masonic Lodge, and the Rotary Club were there that Masonic were there that night. So the three of us were there. We had quite a long discussion. She thought it was only going to take an hour. It took a couple hours. And so we got talking about different things and how we could get the groups to work together, and so much of that meeting that night. So I mulled it over till about January, and it hit me that we had to start working together as community groups. If our community groups don't work together, we can't make this town stronger. As our community groups are mostly all volunteer, they're all volunteer groups, as everybody else is. And as we're all small groups, our memberships aren't very big, but as Mayor said one day at a meeting here, we got 10 here and 10 there and 10 there and 10 there, and they know 10 and 10 and 10. It's just going to make it grow. So by Michelle and her committee coming to us and talking to us about the culture group, I had no clue what this meeting was about. I had no idea. So we took it on as a group to start sitting together and meeting and trying to work as the cooperative is the wrong word or the right word, we don't know yet. We're going to do more tomorrow night. But as working the group, we can make things happen as the community groups by maybe having more people join our community groups and maybe not join. Maybe they don't want to join a group, but maybe they'll work with us at different functions to make this community stronger and better. I heard lots of great different ideas, and I'll take them home and mull them over, but I mean, there's lots of different groups in this town that can work together, and I think this is just one of them, and I hope that we can get more of them together as we grow. Thank you.
So I don't know if you have any questions for us. We're certainly willing to answer some now, or if you at any time after you've reviewed it and want to ask any of us as committee members, we're pleased to take questions.
Well, certainly on behalf of Council, Sharon, your group has done a ton of work on this. And I was presented this a couple of weeks ago, actually, by Michelle, and I said, I don't know, I don't have much culture and I don't really understand all this, but I did promise her I would read it, and I did, and it opened my eyes as to exactly where, you know, there's so much more to it. You take the word culture and you figure, oh, it's maybe a fancy item at the center of the arts in Regina or something, but that's not what it is. It's life, and I certainly learned something from it. I think you guys have done an admirable job and put a ton of work into it, and I certainly agree that we shouldn't leave it sitting on the shelf. It should be an ongoing development.
Sharon, how many people took the surveys in particular? When you end up with numbers for the third one, it's the only one that I actually realized, and I did actually do it. But I'm just wondering what kind of a response or interest was there?
The survey numbers, was that about 70 for the third one? How many was there, Michelle? Do you remember?
By the end of completed responses, it was about 30.
30.
Yeah,
Okay.
that one was only open for a week. For the draft plan review, it wasn't one for collecting a lot of data. It was more for giving people an opportunity to get a sneak preview and throw in.
I think up to that it was 300, wasn't it? Was that
The
one and
first
two,
one?
or was that just the second one? Because on the third survey, it had given a number, and I thought it said 300, but I couldn't remember if it was.
No, 300 was the hours of volunteers. But it was about 160 on the second survey and about 90 some on the first.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Like I said, I think we could always have used more input and certainly more attendance. I know all of you probably understand that when you go to a meeting too, it's not like we always have well-attended meetings of any kind, unless there's controversy. Believe me, I thought of you thinking up one. But then we get more trouble for that, so then I just thought better leave that alone. So, yeah, we would hope for more, but I also think we'll get more as it grows a little bit and as we start doing some of the things. Anybody else?
Through the mayor, through the delegate, I would also like to thank the committee and all those involved for all the hard work and hours you put in. I know I learned some new things about our community by going through this package, and I'm really excited about the doors that you're opening in the community and what this is going to do to benefit our community and bring back some of that community spirit and pride and work together. So thank you for all the work that everybody's put into that.
Well, thanks again for your time and your consideration. We really do appreciate it on behalf of our community.
Thank you very much.
Are these gluten free?
Almost.
I was going to ask you for Trudeau's new 2018 brownies.
Okay, we're all here.
Nothing will get done though. Yeah.
I really like this document. I've noticed some stuff, but I really like it.
I have a question.
If I could just have everybody's attention for a minute.
Although, you know, Dave made a good. We're over here to do that.
Oh.
So I guess that's what's.
Yeah, I know. Bernie, you had a comment for a minute?
Thank you, Worship. Thank you, Your Worship. So that was an excellent presentation from the committee, as we heard. Special thanks to Tim and Michelle for leading that particular group and to forming that committee. It's a very, very strong committee, and these types of plans always work best when you have community engagement and community involvement. So just a process for you. So the culture plan is a subset of the quality of living plan. So that's one of the plans of I think there's 13 or 14 plans that we have that comprise the Kindersley Growth Plan. In that plan, which is taking shape right now, there's 3 components to the quality of living plan, and each of them are about quality of living. So the culture plan is one, the recreation master plan is the other, and economic development plan is the other. And each of those rely on the other in order to help enhance the quality of living of communities. So the next steps for you is to give some feedback to the group in terms of after you've read it and you've reviewed it. You may want to assign a member of council to work with the committee, which can then bring feedback back to council. That would be your choice. And then we have to work on the implementation. So after council adopts this plan in whatever shape or form, if you decide that this is the direction that you want to be going in, then we have to move on implementation. And implementation is a combination, as you heard, of capital T being the town of Kindersley, and lowercase t, which is the community of Kindersley. So I know that this group anxiously and eagerly awaits the direction of council so that we can then start moving on implementation. So,
thank you very much.
Thanks, Bernie.